And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, Ryan Metzler here, and today we're looking at a two-player game. We're looking at 2 de Mayo, and this is going to be a asymmetrical war game type of game. It's more of a strategy where one player is playing the Spanish, who are trying to defend Madrid from the French invaders. And so one player is much more at a disadvantage, or it appears much more at a disadvantage, because they have fewer units, whereas the other player, the French, has many more units, but has some downsides to their play as well. So with that said, why don't we take a look at what's inside this box, how the game plays, and what my thoughts are on it. So here we have a pretty good layout of what's in the box, and this is actually the starting layout of the game. And you can see that there are several red and blue cubes distributed throughout the city of Madrid here. And so the red cubes here represent the Spanish forces, and you can see there's not many of them, so it's a small rebellious force of people here in Madrid. And then all of the blue represent the locations of French forces at the beginning of the game. So we have 2 cubes of French forces in several different areas, and one in an area that actually already contains a Spanish cube. Additionally, the French have reinforcements all around the city that can be brought in some point after turn 3 on the turn marker, which is marked by a little blue spot here showing that you can bring in reinforcements. Now the reason that there's such a difference here is because this is an asymmetrical game. The Spanish are a small force, so there's not many of them, but they have some very powerful effects in their deck of cards. And there's actually some negative effects in the French deck of cards that will help the Spanish player. Now, as I said, there's a lot more French, but the cards are not as good, and they actually tend to help the opponent sometimes instead of helping the player. Now, on each turn, the players are going to do several things. In the first phase, they're going to have the option of drawing a card, and each player is going to have a hand of cards. I believe you start with 2 or 3, and you actually start with 1 card out on the table. But based on how many cards your opponent has, you may or may not be able to draw a card, and that kind of allows so that one player doesn't get too far ahead by playing too many cards, or one player doesn't build up too much of a hand and all of a sudden take advantage of it at some point. So first thing you get to do is draw a card, and after that you're going to get to what's called the orders phase, and you're going to write down orders on a sheet of paper. So each player is going to have one of these order forms. And they're outlined by turn. There's spots each turn for you to write things down and to move your units around the board. And the whole idea is for the Spanish to be surviving at the end of the game, and the French to have eliminated all of the Spanish and to have taken over certain areas in the city. And so each player is going to write down their orders, and the French are actually limited in this step to the fact that they can only write down 2 orders. And orders are going to take the form of something to the extent of like move units from 11 to 13, or 11 to 14, or maybe 5 to 4 in order to move into attack another player's units. So the French player can do 2 movements, and they can actually split people up. So if they wanted to, they could move person from 11 to 14 and 11 to 13, or they could move both people from 11 to 13 and some people from 6 to 7. It doesn't really matter what they do, as long as they're trying to eliminate the forces of the Spanish. Now the Spanish has a little bit of a different scenario. They can move as many units as they want. However, once 2 Spanish units are in the same spot, they can never split up. Now that's not entirely true because there are cards that allow them to split, but for the most part, once 2 Spanish units are together, if you're moving from 9 to 8, both units are going to have to move. There are some exceptions to these movement rules, but for the most part, that's the way movement in the game works. After that, after you've written down the orders, both players are going to reveal their orders, and they're going to move simultaneously. And at the end of that, basically any combat resolution that needs to be resolved is done. So let's say, for example, the French player had moved from 11 to 12. So in Area 12, we have the French and the Spanish contested, and as you can see, there are more French cubes than there are Spanish cubes. And the way combat is resolved is that if there's at least one more cube of one type than the other, then you eliminate 1 cube of the lower color. So in this case, you would be eliminating 1 red cube, which is good for the French player because they need to eliminate all of the Spanish players, or Spanish pieces. If you have at least twice as many cubes, you're going to remove 2 cubes. 3 times as many, 3 cubes, and so forth and so on. Now, this can result in leaving, let's say we have 3 on 2. That's not twice as many, so 1 cube is eliminated. At this point, on the next turn, you'd think, well, now the French can just run away. And that is not true. Once the French have entered a combat, they can actually never leave. This is obviously modified by cards, and cards are actually always pretty much going to be exceptions to the rules of the game. And the same is not true for the Spanish. So Spanish, once they've entered combat, can actually retreat with half of their units. So if the Spanish wanted to move half their units away, in this case it'd be 1, they could move a Spanish unit away, to 14 or something like that. Now, as I said, the objective of the game is going to be for the French to defeat all of the Spanish units and to take over certain areas on the board, which are going to be 20, 19, 6, 1, and I believe 10 as well. It may not be 10. But, they have to control certain areas on the game by the last turn of the game. The Spanish merely want to survive or to eliminate at least 4 French cubes. If they eliminate 4 French cubes, they win immediately. So as you can see, there's different victory conditions, and there's different amounts of cubes, there's different styles of play. Generally speaking, just different ideas on how you're going to maneuver through this game and attempt victory. And now, as I said, you have all of these cards, and some of them, for the French, force you to play them immediately. They're going to change movement styles, they're going to change different rules, they're going to allow you to do more or less orders on your turn, to move more units or less units. They may allow you to bring reinforcements into an area at an opportune time. And the same is true for the Spanish. As for the French, they're going to have cards that benefit them mostly. And really, that's all there is to the game. Whoever can eliminate the most forces or survive until the end is going to be the winner. So that's 2 de Mayo. I kind of enjoy the game. I've played it a few times now with different players, and I thought it's a very interesting game. Now, I don't find it to be like, whoa, that was crazy fun. It's actually a decent amount of thought. You're trying to anticipate what your opponent's going to do, to move where they're going to move, or to move away from where they're going to move if you're the Spanish, and to be the first to reach that victory condition. And it's kind of it's a race. I enjoy it. My girlfriend wasn't too fond on it. I thought that it was pretty even, and really it came down to the last turn when we played. I just managed to prevent her from moving one of her units so that I could come in and attack it and kill it before the game was over. She thought that it was kind of too obvious and that one player seemed to be too favored over the other. Different players, different opinions, of course. Definitely an interesting game one way or the other. I think she thought it was interesting, if not balanced. But if you like asymmetrical games, if you like war games, I'd suggest taking this out. It plays really quickly in maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. And is at least worth a decent look. So 2 de Mayo, have a look. I think that there's going to be a significant population of people out there that will really enjoy this one.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.